Good morning, Algonquin College community. Happy Wednesday. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not the morning anymore, just a minute past. It is the afternoon on a Wednesday, a rainy day today. Thank you so much, folks, for joining us, and a happy first week of school. Thank you for joining us for this cool event today. We are joined by James from Little Ray's Reptiles, who is going to take us on a virtual field trip through the zoo and show us all the cool animals there. But before we get started, I'm just going to do a quick introduction. So first of all, folks, let's test out the chat feature. So if you just open up the chat, I would like you to type in either your favorite animal or if you have ever been to Little Ray's Reptiles. So let's hear your favorite animal and if you've ever been to Little Ray's Reptiles, or if you've ever had like a presentation at your school for Little Ray's. Okay, let's see what we've got. Meg said, oh, chinchillas, bears, kitty cats, owls, tiger, leopard, gecko, sharks, pigs. I love pigs. Kangaroo, cat, ravens. Katrina's been once to Little Ray's. Hannah had them at their house. Cool. Crocodiles, never been. Awesome, guys. That's awesome. Well, for those who have never been to Little Ray's, you are in for a treat. It is so cool. It was like one of my favorite memories from elementary school was when they would come in with the big snake and you could like pet the snake and hold it. It was so cool. Megan says, Cass, I've been there once. That's awesome, folks. Snake, yeah. Cool. Okay, guys, so I'm just going to do a quick little housekeeping and then we'll get started. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Sam and I work here at Algonquin College on the events team. And we are here for a Little Ray's virtual field trip with Jamie today. So if you need closed captioning in this event today, you can press the CC icon along the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. This event is being recorded and will be available to watch on the orientation website in a few days. If you have any questions throughout the event today, you can raise your hand, your virtual hand, to ask your question out loud, or you can type it in the chat and I'll read it out loud to James from there. If you're planning on coming to campus at all this fall semester, please make sure to give yourself enough time to go through the COVID-19 screening process. And also please check out the Algonquin College vaccination policy and FAQ documents before heading over, and we'll share the links to that in the chat. All right, guys, so are you ready to go to Little Ray's Reptiles? Jamie, we're here, we're excited. Take it away.
All right, well, welcome everyone. As you heard, my name is James. I'll be your presenter for your virtual tour today. Let's get out of the sunlight there so we don't have too much glare for us. Now, well, you guys, it seems like a lot of you have experienced Little Ray's in one way or another, either growing up or maybe even been to a couple of our locations. As we have moved, we originally were on our Bank Street location. We are now in Sarsfield. No, my name isn't Ray. There is Little Ray, he's not in today, so now it's just Awesome James. Hopefully that'll be the nickname of the day, or we can think of some other good one just as well. But all those animals that do come into our care, yeah, just James, we can go with that for today. So all those animals that do come into our care are more often than not rescued animals. About 85% of the animals in our care today are rescued animals. And that comes from lots of different backgrounds. Not only were they people's pets that they just couldn't take care of anymore, they might have realized they got in over their head with maybe a snake that gets a little bit larger than they anticipated, or a turtle that they thought might live only 10 years, and then it turns out it lives 35 years. And then there are some sadder stories just as well. We'll probably get into that with all the different animals that we see in our tour today. But you might notice there's a bit of an echo in the area I'm in, because I'm actually in one of the habitats of our animals right now. I saw someone was talking about crocodiles. Now, I wouldn't be in our crocodile habitat, but I am in the crocodilian habitat. So crocodiles are one of 4 different groups of crocodilians. They differ between the crocodiles, the alligators, the gharials, which are an awesome species. Unfortunately, we don't have any of those in our care. Luckily enough, no one had them as a pet, and that's why they're not here at Little Ray's Nature Center. But there's one other group called the caiman. Now, The caiman stay a little bit smaller than most of the crocodilians, but there are some that get quite large, like the black caiman. Now, luckily enough, I'm right beside about 7 dwarf caiman, Cuvier's dwarf caiman. Now, normally in the wild, these animals, you get as close as I will be to them, they'd be running away from you. They only get to about 3.5 feet for the ladies and about 6 foot, pretty much max for the males. But these little guys are only about 2.5 feet. So enough of me talking about them. Let's take a look at them. So I'll turn the camera around. We can take a look at our first presenters, our Cuvier's dwarf caiman. See if I can get some nice focus on them. Hello, chompies. Yes. Cute or scary? Now that is definitely up to personal preference. I find them pretty cute, and scary really only if they decided to act in a scary manner. But luckily enough, these guys, they're very well habituated to people. These are often the animals or crocodilians that will go out on our tours, usually to schools, birthday parties just as well, and even museum exhibits. So we'll often take these guys out. So as you can see, I can get nice and close for you guys to them, but even so, I still have a bit of protection, because even though they are very friendly and they are pretty nice and I can get nice and close to them and even handle them, I still have this piece of plastic tubing always between me and them. You're not going to see it, but I have it just in case these guys get a little snappy with me, because even though they are friendly, they do have some pretty nice teeth on them, and I'd rather keep a bit of a barrier between myself and them. I saw a few questions coming up in the chat there, so I'll see if I can.
I was just about to say, James, we've got a couple of questions about them already.
Yes. All right.
The first question is, how often do they move?
So they will move quite often. When there's someone in here, they're likely to just stay still. Even so, there's a nice term called crocodile tears, and people will use that when they're kind of faking stuff, really. So even though they seem quite calm and like they're not doing too much, they can move quite quickly if they need to, especially from this location. This is where you'll often see crocodilians, right at the edge of the water, because that's where they'll often hunt by. So they can do that, it's because they still have all this extra water that they can use to propel their tail and the rest of their body way out of the water incredibly fast. Now, what do we feed these guys? I saw that came up a few times. So these guys, they get quite a good assortment of meats. They are totally carnivorous. So we will often give them, considering these guys are smaller, they're only about 2.5 to 3 feet. They'll often get different kinds of organ meat. That'd be heart, different kind of organs. We'll give them small chicks, fish, lots of different meats that they'll all get. We'll fill them right up, and they'll eat every about 2 to 3 weeks, depending how much food we do give them. Now, you probably haven't seen it yet, but there's one guy in here that's not like the others, and that's Charlie, who's swimming around in the background there. Now, Charlie might think immediately, Charlie, that turtle that's swimming right over to the caiman is in danger. But really, he absolutely isn't. Charlie, that turtle, he's far too large for them to be considered as a prey item. Charlie, I see someone saying, I'd be scared if I were Charlie. But Charlie here, he actually runs the show. He is incredibly brave, but these guys were terrified of him when we first introduced them into the group. These guys all were terrified. They ran right to the back, right behind their little tree there. And they were like, what the heck? That's not a caiman. I don't know what's going on. Charlie definitely is the alpha in here. I'll tell you what, they have these nice basking areas. They have their beach area. If any of them come to get some basking, get some nice heat going on for them, Charlie climbs up on top of the tallest one of them. He gets the best spot in the sun, best tanning location just for Charlie. Same when it comes to feeding. Charlie is also a type of carnivore. So he will also eat the same food that these guys will. I'll tell you something, he pushes right through the lot of them. He gets the biggest portion of meat, swims himself right back to the water to enjoy it. And he pushes right back and gets the next piece of meat that he's looking for. He's the absolute king of the castle in here. Let's see, I saw a few questions, but mostly just saying how Charlie is awesome.
I've got a question, James.
Yeah.
What kind of turtle is Charlie? Because I thought most turtles were herbivores, but it must be like a snapping turtle, maybe?
So he is a red-eared slider turtle. So lots of turtles, even though most people will think they are herbivores, they will also scavenge for a lot of them. A lot of aquatic turtles, most aquatic turtles are mostly carnivorous, but they will randomly feed on foliage, but not so much. The tortoises are more so herbivorous compared to the aquatic species. And our tortoises, they'll get quite a lot of salads every other day, huge salads, because our tortoises are quite enormous. But even so, they'll also get protein attached to those diets, so little kibbles of types of protein for them, because they will also scavenge if there's carrion around, dead meat. They will take that because it is an extra bit of protein for them. But a pretty good question. That's often a question that most people are kind of confused about when they think of turtles. They always think that they're herbivorous. But Charlie there, he's the king in this castle, and he definitely loves his meat. Any other questions for these guys? I've probably got a couple more fun facts back before we move on to our next animals on our tour. So one question I tend to get often enough with these guys, can you pet them? So I can definitely handle them. It'll be very difficult for me to do so while holding an iPad. So I probably won't be doing it this show, but they are definitely handleable. But even so, they have very large teeth for such small animals. And they have an incredibly powerful jaw. They have the strongest bite force of any living animal, the crocodilian family. And the winner of those goes to the saltwater crocodile. Do they like pets? They don't mind being handled. And the very interesting about them is that when they kind of feel like putting up a fuss and they're like, you know what, I just want to go down. I'm tired of being held. You can actually feel them build up all that energy. And then right before they're going to kind of move around and get a little bit more energetic. So it gives you about 10 seconds and you say, all right, guys, I'm just going to put this guy down because he's getting a little bit anxious being held. But they are used for tours quite often, so they are habituated to being held. Now, could you get this close to one of these guys out in the wild? Absolutely not. They would be well way deep in the waters. They do not want anything to do with you. How old are they? These guys are actually only about 3 or 4 years old. They were actually born in our care, so that they're actually a very good question there. I saw, are they all females? So they are actually a mix. Now, often enough with reptiles, it is heat dependent on whether they'll be males or females. But because some of these eggs were actually buried lower than some others. Some came out males and some came out females, but all due to temperature change, which decides whether you're going to have females or males with crocodilians. That's wild. Do they get any bigger? Yes. So these are the dwarf caiman. These guys are only about 2.5, 3 feet. The ladies don't get much bigger than this, about 3.5 feet, maybe a little bit bulkier, but not so much longer. And the males pretty much max out about 5 to 6 feet. So they are very small for a crocodilian, but in my opinion, not a little bit too big to be a standard type of pet. Not so much something that you would want to be taking care of too often. Because even though they don't get too big, feeding those larger animals can be a bit dangerous. You might want to have another person behind you at the time, and same, the food has to grow with them. Can you own one as a pet? No, you can't. Canada has some pretty strict rules with regards to crocodilians and even primates. And then, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's no to crocodilians and no to any kind of primate unless you are under a certain accreditation. Because we have, imagine taking one for a walk. I mean, it wouldn't be too bad. You could put a little harness on them. They are pretty reasonable animals, at least these guys are, because they've been Yeah, you can definitely visit them at Little Rays. Because they've been habituated to people, they're a lot easier to work with. If you just found one of these straight out of the wild, they would not be happy to see you and definitely not be happy to be handled. So when we do get animals like this, like crocodilians, into our care, we do try to work with them as much as possible so that it's safer for us to work with them and for them to work with us. Another level of scary talk. Some pretty solid comments right now. I'm enjoying it. One question I do get often is, how can we tell who's who in here? And that is a very reasonable question because they all look very, very similar. Now, there are a few different factors, a way of differentiating these guys. One main one that lots of zoos will do is they'll actually take just a little bit of a chunk out of the back end of their tail in certain areas so that they can differentiate the two. Now, we haven't done that because we know of one other way. Now, I'll point it out here with my little stick. Now you'll see it's going to bite it there. So you can see how quick that they can actually move. Luckily, this is just plastic, so it's not going to injure them whatsoever. That's why we use this. And it's not designed for pushing or anything like that. What you will see is this pattern all along that lower jaw. See how there's a straight line, then a dot and a straight line. Now, none of these guys will have that same kind of pattern. That's how we're able to associate who is who in amongst this big group. And there we have Charlie coming up there, just doing what he wants. All right, guys. So I'm going to be heading to another habitat, see if someone else wants to show up for our tour. And but if we have any questions about these crocodilians or any of the other animals we'll be showing on our tour, feel free to throw those questions out as I'm heading to the next habitat. I'll turn the camera around here. All right. Just have to hop out here. I want to put a hat on it. It would look pretty funny. Let's make sure that the door gets locked because we don't want any of these guys running around without someone knowing about it. So I think we'll be heading into definitely probably one of my favorite habitats here. We've seen the crocodilians already. And I think we're going to be heading into a type of primate. The only primate that's in our care, and the one that's actually least related to us of all the primates. Now you're going to have to bear with me. It's going to get a little dark. We do have a double door system in here, and I'll actually be feeding these guys just as well. So yeah, let's take some guesses as I'm heading through the door. Spider monkey, that would be awesome. I'd be so excited for spider monkeys. But we have something else. Orangutan. Oh my goodness, that would be my dream. But let's turn the camera around and take a look. It's our ring-tailed lemurs. So we have King Julian right here, and he's just waiting. He's like, James, you got some good food for me? So let's see, we want a blueberry, King Julian. Yes, he does. Now, I can't leave Queen Elizabeth hanging because she's also looking for some. I'll actually just put some food right on her little platform here so she can enjoy it. Oh, she goes right to the banana. Good choice.
Oh my god, so cute.
And then we have Dad here. He's actually doing something very interesting that is actually very strict to lemurs. So you'll see him, and he's holding on to that branch there. Now what he did just before is he actually has these little scent glands right on his forearms. So maybe he'll come around here and he'll hop right on and get some food. There we go. Jump on over. All right, grapes are usually his favorite. There you go. Now, as you'll see, he's got these little scent glands right here. Now, he'll actually rub his forearms and arms with those scent glands, and then he'll actually rub them all throughout the trees here. Yeah, they definitely are very, very cute. Yeah, their ears are pretty amazing. And they're very, very soft just as well. Now, those scent glands, they kind of warn off other lemur species, or they'll also say, this is my territory. They have actually multiple different scents for different ways of communication. And that's King Julian over here. Now we do actually have fruit bats in our care. Let's try to make the focus nice and good there. but their habitat is quite dark, so I probably won't be hopping into that habitat today. You wouldn't get the best visuals for them. But these lemurs, I saw some people noticed how his name was King Julian in relation to one of those movies, the Madagascar movies. The irony of all that is that it's actually the ladies that run the show. So even though it was Queen Julian, it is actually Queen Elizabeth over here. That is the king in this area, well, queen. Queen Elizabeth is a little bit more shy than King Julian, but it looks like she's looking for some nice berries. You can see they're very, very good at climbing. They're using that tail to help them balance throughout. But there's some proof that's really Queen Elizabeth running the show here. Though King Julian was enjoying his meal, she just kicked him right out. Oh yes, they're fantastic jumpers. Now, they will jump around throughout this whole habitat here. We actually just built this habitat for them last December. It's pretty much the size of a large apartment, just for the two of them. Now, they have had children in the past. We had Maurice and their son. They absolutely don't pay rent. Well, I guess you could say they kind of do, because they bring in some people to come see all of our animals there. So definitely a lemur is definitely a nice draw for our private tours that we have here at the nature center. Maybe a banana for her. Oh, she's liking the mangoes today. Now, I guess luckily enough for myself, I get to make pretty much all their meals every day. And I decided to put some mango in there, see how they'd enjoy it. And it looks like it's just going off without a hitch. Now, they are very, very interesting animals. As I said, they have that long ring tail that they use for balancing throughout the trees, but they'll also keep it upright when they're walking on the ground. Now, that is a form of communication so that they can let the other group of them know where they are while they're in the forest. Now, funny enough, a group of these guys are actually called a conspiracy of lemurs. What they'll do with those tails is actually very interesting, and a unique one of them actually relates back to those scent glands I was talking about. So the males will actually try, do they ever throw things at people? No, they definitely don't, but I can tell you they used to eat right above me rather than on these little platforms, and I thought they just dropped food on me, and it turns out they dropped digested food on me, if you get my drift. But no, so what the males will do when they're trying to, look after the ladies, see if there's other guys around, they're like, you know what? No, I'm the big male. What do? They take that tail of theirs and they rub it all over those scent glands on their forearms. And they actually have these little stink fights where they'll flick their tails and that stench over at other lemurs, other ringtail lemurs, to say, back off. I have a stinkier smell than you. That means I'm the dominant male that's going to be able to breed with these other females. Even though mom's probably going to kick off dad pretty soon, as you see. Doesn't do any harm to him, but as you see, the ladies really do run the show in here. Now, when we did have the babies in our care, it was still the same way. She would actually not let dad eat whatsoever until the babies were able to eat. So often enough, I'd be hiding some of the good stuff behind my back so that they can also enjoy. So dad wasn't just getting, some of the foods that they're not the biggest fans of. They love the grapes, they love their blueberries. And if mom and the babies are hogging them, then dad needs some too. So he'd always get some snuck behind my back for him. They are fantastic. Any questions for these guys? So as I saw about how big are they? So they're pretty small. Here's my hand just for, he's looking at my hand. He's pretty, King Julian's a pretty friendly guy. He's awesome. So they aren't very long. Their tail is actually probably longer than their body. They're probably body, head to tail would be about 1.5 feet. And then their tail itself is probably about 2 feet. They're incredibly soft. So even so, mom has 2 other full platforms. So Queen Elizabeth has 2 other platforms she can go to get food. But even so there's Julian. He's saying, hey, come on, James, get me in the shot. Now, Queen Elizabeth is saying, no, You can't have the good food and you can't be in the photo. This is just for me. So they are very, very funny animals, very entertaining to work with. This is Queen Elizabeth live stream, yeah. So they are awesome, awesome types of primates. Now, as I said, and as the movie states, they are found in Madagascar, and that's actually the only place we will find the lemur species. All the other monkey and ape species have outcompeted them on mainland, and the Madagascar, that giant island of Madagascar, is the only one that actually houses and homes different species of lemur. There's one there. All right, let's take a look at what we have for questions. What an icon, nice. How old are they? So they're about 6 and 7 years old, so they are quite young. Mom's had 2 children already. She's had baby Maurice, and then her eldest son didn't actually have a name, but they both moved to the Vancouver Zoo. So there you get a good idea of how long that tail is. Sorry, it's a little out of focus there. We'll try to make it a little better for you. Might even get nice and close. You can really see how those hands are. So it's really cool, because you can see his back feet. You'll see his four toes here, and then his other foot actually pretty much works like a thumb. Their eyes are absolutely gorgeous. There's a good example there. So that back, their hind legs really are just as well, just like an extra set of hands. So they are very impressive climbers. But the funny thing is they actually spend about 50% of their life on the ground. So they are almost just as much terrestrial as they are arboreal. Arboreal meaning that they spend their lives in the trees. Terrestrial meaning they spend their lives on the ground. Now let's see what we're working with here. Let's see. Saw something about rings on their tail. It's usually about 13 rings. Can differ. That's usually about that 13. Like I said, it can differ depending on how their tails are, and sometimes in fights they can lose a bit of their tail, as that's a nice place for another male lemur to kind of go after. Do they eat anything other than fruit? Now, we will give them their largely fruit and vegetable diet with a little bit of vegetable, but the majority is fruit. As you'll see, they'll have some strawberries, some cantaloupe, pears, blueberries, grapes, melon, but also sweet potato. They absolutely love the sweet potato. And then on top of that, we will always leave this in here full every day. So this is a bit of kind of like a chow. So it's like a protein biscuit for them. And that's where they'll get their proteins from. Yes, lemur granola bars, essentially. Yeah, so that's what we give them for their proteins and their foods. And they'll get those, a full bowl, just like that one, of fruit and vegetable twice a day, every day. And just as well, you'll see these little pieces of plastic hung throughout the habitat here. And those are for collards. So we'll often give them little collard greens, just placed right in here in a little bunch. Here she is. And they'll just kind of chew on a little bit on that. They don't eat too much of it. And what we do, if there's some remaining in the morning, we'll bring it out and feed our tortoises with any of the leftovers of the greens. Looks like King Julian's just getting a nice itch behind his ear there. So those hands those feet kind of do multiple things, as you can see. All right, let's see what we got. How do you tell the males from females? Well, luckily enough, the males have pretty obvious genitalia. So you'll definitely be able to tell when one's a male and one's a female in that sense. And just as well, the more you work with them, you kind of notice different aspects of them that are kind of noticeable. So I know that Julian's got this nice little black spot here on his nose. His tail is actually much darker for a longer portion at the end. So there's lots of different things that you notice that are unique to each and every one of the animals that you work with, the more you work with different animals and even of the same species. So I can look at a tortoise or a rattlesnake in a video and say, well, that's not my rattlesnake that we have here in our care, even though it's the same species, and they can tend to look very similar. There are little spots about animals that make them look a little different from one another. I actually noticed in a YouTube video the other day that someone had used footage of our own rattlesnake. And I was like, that animal looks incredibly familiar to ours, and they actually had reused some of our footage. So there are things that you will notice on animals the more you work with them. Now, with that being said, we'll probably head out of this habitat and see who else we have for the rest of our tour. But if there are any more questions about our ring-tailed lemurs in our care, or even about the, there we are, the caiman as well, feel free to ask those questions and I'll get those answers for you.
We had one question just come into the chat. How long do lemurs live? I guess maybe in the wild and in captivity, because I think it's probably different, I assume.
Yeah, so it's going to be different. In captivity, they've actually tended to live a little bit longer as they don't have predation to deal with. They don't have deforestation, which is a huge problem in Madagascar at the moment, where they've lost about 60% of their forested area. So that's definitely a big problem for them. So in the wild, it's usually into their later teens, and in human care, I know they've been known to live into their 20s. So
That's actually a longer lifespan than I expected, even for the wild. Into their teens is pretty good.
Yeah, well, primates tend to live a little bit longer than most of the other animals. Humans, orangutans, chimps, gorillas, they tend to live pretty long. Lemurs, they're a little bit different since they are kind of in a weird part of our family tree there. They do have a different lifespan. And smaller animals tend to live a little bit less, but there's definitely lots of exceptions to all these different rules when it comes to animals, that's for sure. All right, so you'll have to bear with me again. I just need to go into the dark. Are there any habitat?
Any hints for where we're going next? We can have people guess in the chat.
All right, so this is a Central and South American animal that we'll be seeing next. So it looks like she's having a bit of a snooze up her eye here. Let's see if he wants to come down. Now, you might see these guys around a lot of resorts in Central America. They're usually in big groups, and they're actually related to the raccoon family. And I can hear her chirping away here.
I don't see any guesses in the chat. I don't have a guess.
I didn't really give you a lot to work with, so I don't blame you guys. But here, I'll turn it around. We can see Chester. Hey, Chester. I might have to turn it around the other way because she's a little camera shy. So here is Chester. Where's a good angle for you guys? So Chester is a coatimundi or coati. There she is. Maybe I'll have to turn the camera around because she's turned around. You can never really trust animals to give you the best shot. You really got to work with what you have. Yeah, I've seen a lot of never heard or seen of this animal before, and I don't blame you. I know she was on my list of animals I thought I'd never be working with ever in my life, so I was very excited when I heard that Chester was coming over here to Little Ray's Nature Center. Hey girl, a little camera shy. There she is. Now, as I was saying, talking about different animals and why they come into our care. Now, where those lemurs, they came to us because they were from a facility or a traveling facility that does educational outreach. And they're a big yawn from Chester. And they couldn't take care of those lemurs anymore, so that's why they came into our care. Now, Chester is of a different story. Chester here was sadly a cruelty case, and apparently a shy camera case is what it seems. So sadly, what happened to Chester, she was brought in illegally. Someone thought that they could take care of an animal like this. They actually thought she was a 2-year-old male, a coatimundi. Yeah, even saying out loud would probably be difficult to search it out there. She's just tucking herself in, just enjoying her little scratches there. But what her story is why only a few of our staff can actually work with her. So what happened was, you might be noticing on her feet here, hey you, she's kind of missing some claws, but no claw, but all of her claws are in the back. So her original owner thought she was a 2-year-old coatimundi and a male. That's why she has the name Chester. Turns out she was actually a 10-year-old male. Looks like she's going to the washroom upstairs here. You can see her nice old habitat. So we'll give her some space while she's doing her bit. But this is her habitat here. As you can tell, she's a nice old climber. She's got her big cat tree up there. She'll either decide to be in the bottom or the central one, but she often has her snoozes up there. When she's tired of tours going by, she's like, I don't really want to do and see you guys anymore, so I'll just go lie down upstairs there. She's getting another big stretch. But what happened was, as I was saying, she thought she was a 2-year-old male. Turns out she's actually a 10-year-old female, or was a 10-year-old female. She's about 12 now. And they only live to about 12 to 14 years. So she is actually an old girl. But what happens was, her original owner purchased her, and because she's often an animal that will be burrowing, looking for their food, like grubs, different fruits and seeds that would be coming out of trees and landing on the ground, that means they have to dig. So she was digging up a lot of her floorboards. Now, what does she want to do? She said, well, I'm going to take her to a vet and see if she can get declawed, because she is scratching up all my floors. But the vet said, no, you can't even have this animal in captivity. So, well, I'm of course not going to do that. So what did that owner do? Instead of just living with it and dealing with it, the owner put the onus on herself to declaw her. So due to that, she's now missing a quite large portion of those toes, and she no longer trusts any females. She has sadly gone after and bitten a few of the female staff, sadly. So right now it's just myself and about 2 other staff members that can directly interact with her. So the ladies, unfortunately, if you come here on a tour, you won't be interacting with this little cutie pie named Chester. And most likely even the men too, because it does take a while for an animal, especially an animal that's been through a life like she has, to really build that trust and that bond. So it's taken me about 1.5 years to work with her. It's taken Kyle, who was her first rescuer from her previous home, about 2 years to work with her. So with all animals, it always takes time to build those bonds and that trust. Yeah. Even if she had trusted me before I trusted her, I'm sure that was the case, I still knew of her history. So I definitely took my time working with her. And as you can see, she's still a fantastic little animal. I saw a bunch of questions coming in there and lots of comments. Let's see what we're working with here. There's quite a lot to look through. Let's see, I've never seen this animal. Yep, she is a very unique one. But yeah, if you go to Central South America or northern parts of South America, you'll often see these guys in groups of about 10 to 12. Now she's going to come right onto my lap, I'd imagine. Coatimundi, yeah, whoever spelled that got it first try. That's awesome. Now she's not, her skin's not too bristly. It's actually quite soft. Definitely not comparable to the lemurs, of course, but still quite soft. Let's see what else do we have. What are they native to? Yeah, so southern, South America and Central America. Now, luckily, I don't have the information of that ex-owner. Probably wouldn't want it. All right. Are there any questions for Chester? I will say that she is an omnivore. So she does get a mix of vegetable and protein and fruits, and just as well, she'll get proteins as well. Often enough, it's a kibble, and every other day she'll get a large piece of protein, whether it be meat, fish, chicken, poultry, and anything of that nature. She's not a big fan of mice.
There was a good question in the chat about how the animals at Little Rays get their names.
All right, so often enough, if they come into the facility, we'll try to keep those names. Of course, if they have some obscenities in them, then obviously we won't.
Right.
But then we do have another staff member, our outreach manager, Kyle. He kind of went around and decided to name quite a few of them himself. Now, do I agree with some of the names? No, but you know, some of them are pretty good.
Awesome. And actually, there was another really great question in the chat. How can someone apply for a job at Little Rays, or if they're interested in working, you know, what does that look like? And maybe are you hiring?
So definitely, I know we have posted stuff just on most, like ZipRecruiter. I don't know if it's on Kijiji. I don't know. I don't remember if that's where I had found it. But I had quite an interesting interview process where I got an email after I just kind of sent my resume in. They said, all right, can you come out to Gatineau? And I was like, well, the area isn't in Gatineau. So this already sounds like I'm just getting hired for some other totally different thing. But it turns out that's where Little Ray actually lives. So I actually went out and had about a 45-minute conversation just talking about animals with Little Ray. Now, there you go. So someone on LinkedIn there. Now, when talking about animals and taking care of them, there's lots of different things that you'd have to be capable of. Yes, Chester does live alone. One, you definitely have to be able to talk to people. You can't be too shy when you're doing outreach or private tours. So that's one major thing, is being confident and able to do public speaking, and then just as well taking care of animals and actually knowing a lot about different animals is quite a good thing to have if you're trying to apply here. Now, we definitely try to help people along so that they can learn about everything, because we are a rescue. It is very difficult to know everything about every animal, because animals do come and go here as we are a rescue. So if we can find a better home for them, then we will definitely try to do that. But because there is a constant rotation of animals, people have to really keep on their toes about their information. So it's definitely, if that's your kind of thing where you really like to have to learn constantly and always kind of learning about animals, then this is definitely the right fit for you. Animal care wise, there's definitely a lot more to learn about. Now, I'll be heading out of this habitat here, so we'll say a nice goodbye to Chester. So bye, girl, and we'll see who we have next. All right. Now we do have sloths in our care. Currently, there's someone actually doing a sloth encounter, because that's one of the things we do offer here at Little Rays Nature Center. We have 3 different kinds of tours that we offer. One being a private tour of the whole facility, with one of our staff members guiding you, learning about all the animals, how they came here, and all these fun different facts. And you can even interact with a few of them. And one of those is also a sloth encounter. So you'd be going into the habitat with our 2 sloths, Roger and Lilo. You would be feeding them. You'd be able to take some awesome selfies with them, and even be petting them just as well. But I will emphasize that they do have about 4 pretty large chompers on them that you definitely do not want to get your fingers caught in there. And a finger does look like a sweet potato. So that's one warning if you do come here, to be careful.
Totally fair.
Now, I did hear someone talking about one of their favorite animals being pigs. So I wasn't normally going to talk about these guys, but I saw it, so I thought I would change up the presentation a bit and show you John Ham on my left and Kevin Bacon on my right. Now, John Ham and Kevin Bacon are our 2. He is our Vietnamese potbelly pig, and this is our Appalachian potbelly pig. Spirit animals. Yeah, so you can see they have their nice big hide here. They have their washroom because they are potty trained. You can even see a little bit of that in the corner there. Now, they are actually our only animals in our facility that are allowed to go wherever they want. So they are free roaming pigs. Now, they pretty much tend to stay on this mat here because it is very thick and good for grip. They tend to just stay right on that. But Kevin Bacon, this cutie pie over here, he'll often go on little walks around the facility too. He used to do laps all the time, and instead of, you know, enjoying his nice latrine here, he would just leave some right at the front entrance for us. He said, you know what, you guys don't have enough work, so he'd give us some extra. But these guys just as well, they came into the care of us as they were other cruelty cases, sadly. So Kevin here, he's actually blind. And then John here, he was a great animal, but he wasn't also a cruelty case. So whenever we do tours in here and they're enjoying their bed, we just let them enjoy it. But if they do come out and say hi, we can totally interact with these guys. They're super, super friendly, very loving. But I can tell you what, first thing in the morning, they tell you that they want food so loudly. And they definitely know how to beg. Just like a dog might, these guys are just as smart. And even John here does know a few tricks. He doesn't do them for me, but his original keeper, Janie, who was one of his first rescuer, has taught him how to sit, how to do a spin. So they are quite smart animals, but just as well, you can see those tusks. So even though they are quite friendly, they're very funny little animals. You can see those tusks can do quite a bit of damage if they wanted to. Luckily, John here, he's a nice boy. And he doesn't want to. Pumbaa, yeah. A warthog would be pretty awesome just as well. I heard they're not as friendly. Do we brush their teeth and tusks? We don't particularly brush them, but once they get to a certain length, they do have to be trimmed. And that goes the same with their toenails as well. So you have to actually hire a professional farrier to deal that. Because it does get quite loud. They don't particularly enjoy it, but it needs to be done. Yes, they are quite smart animals. They can learn tricks. They definitely learn times of the day, that's for sure. Right at 3 o'clock, they know that that's the time that they normally get fed. So they walk right out to the front and they start to squeal because they say, come on, it's 3 o'clock, guys, speed it up. I know you guys got a lot of work to do, but let's go, I'm hungry. And that's kind of how these guys work. They are quite smart animals. Now, with that said, let's take a turn around and see who else we have on our tour today. Let's see. Any questions for our pigs or any of the other animals? I can even quickly show you the birds that we have here. So we have Coco and Frankie in here. There are blue and gold macaw. That's this guy over here. That's Frankie. And then Coco way up top there is our green-winged macaw. A little shy today, unfortunately. Definitely this guy's never shy. Aren't you? Well, I guess so. Now, these guys were our rescues. Now, macaws are actually some of the most commonly kept animals in people's wills because do they speak to me? I'll definitely cover that one in just one sec. But they are often kept in people's wills because they often outlive their owners. They're an animal species that live up to 85 years. And have about the same intelligence of a 3 to 4 year old. Imagine having a 3 or 4 year old for 85 years. If there are any parents in this call, you can imagine how difficult that would be. Now, they do speak. I know when they first came into our care, I was the last one here. I just finished up doing all my reports for the day. And then all I heard was, hello, hello. And they definitely made me think twice about me having locked all those doors. So I was really hoping that I was the only one here, and it turns out it was just one of these guys messing with me. They do not say anything inappropriate because we do not actively say anything inappropriate around them. They don't just learn it from reading because they're not about to read. So you really have to be saying certain things around them enough times for them to pick up on it and pick up context for them to actually use those words. Do they sing? These guys don't sing. Now we do have other species called the African gray parrots. Beautiful, beautiful animals, but they're also incredibly smart. And I believe they're about to learn about 1,000 different vocalizations. So that's not just words, that's different noises, whistling, One of our guys says hello all the time. He actually learned one of our other guys' names. So they are quite smart animals. See if I can pop into this habitat here and see if anyone wants to come down and say hi. Anyone in here? All right, so we have Roger and Lilo here, so we can actually see our sloths. Maybe we'll end it with our sloths. So I'll turn the camera around and we can see Lilo coming right down. Maybe I'll offer her some sweet potato here. There you go, girl. So we have Lilo right there, and we have Roger up top. He's probably going to come down too because he can smell that sweet potato. So these are our two-toed sloths. These are Linnaeus' two-toed sloths. So they are quite large. They're probably the largest species of sloth. We have the two of them in our care. We actually have one more as well. His name's Barry. But Barry lives on his own because the males don't really get along with each other. These are our Lilo's, our young female, and then Roger is the one kind of just hanging out between them. So we'll offer another big piece of sweet potato, see how she enjoys that one. It looks like Roger wants to come down and get some food as well. So he's saying, hey, come on, Lilo, move out of the way so that I can come get some food as well. Yes. So they definitely do love their sweet potato. I know Roger really loves his peppers just as well. He's definitely a messy eater compared to Lilo there. So you'll see him stretch all the way down. You'll see those huge claws that they have. But they're not very dexterous animals. I mean, you only have the two claws. It's kind of difficult to hold on to things. But you can see he's doing a pretty good job. Now, I know when I first started working with the sloths, I said, wow, these guys must be jacked. They must have like 8-pack abs, being able to just do those hanging sit-ups constantly, like it's effortless for them. It actually turns out to be the opposite. They actually have very low muscle mass, about 10% to 15% less than most mammals. Now with that, you're just like, well, how do they do this? Now they are very good with their ligaments, and their tendons are incredibly strong. So once their feet and their hands are hooked up like that, it is incredibly difficult to unhook them. Like a little hinge. So once it's locked, it's pretty well locked. And they actually weigh surprisingly little, only about 8 to 10 pounds. Yes, awesome. Definitely. But we'll even climb on up. We'll get a nice good look at him as he's just enjoying some sweet potato here. Now you might notice their color. And you're thinking, well, how would a sloth being white and brown survive in a very green habitat like the canopies and the trees of South and Central America? Now, the thing is, when they are in those locations, they actually grow a type of moss all on their fur, which gives them a very green coloration to them. Looks like Roger's coming down for more. So that moss will grow on them and actually form a micro ecosystem with different insects and other types of bugs that will live in the fur of them, providing them some nutrients. And there's even a type of insects that only lives in the moss of the fur of sloths called, appropriately named, the sloth moth. So they are very unique animals and harbor their own micro ecosystems. Very unique animals. Now, they are fantastic. How did you guys get these sloths? Very good question. So where the lemurs, they came from a touring facility that couldn't take care of them anymore. It was just too much for them to take care of 2 lemurs, and I can definitely understand that. That's how they came into our care. Chester, she was cruelty. Now these guys are one of the few animals that came to us from an actual facility that takes care of xenarthrans. Now that meaning the group that these guys are part of, well, the larger group that will also include armadillos and giant anteaters, and sloths are what these people breed and raise them. They raise them for research purposes and to go to facilities like other CASA-approved facilities. like places like our own, or Toronto Zoo, Vancouver Zoo, places of that nature. I saw some other curious questions there. How long do sloths live? So that is quite a large question. So it can be over 20 years sometimes. Our sloths do not breed, just a side note there to that question. They are still very young, so they aren't of breeding age as of yet. They're only about 4 years old. But they can live well over 20 years. Now, someone was asking about upkeep. So this habitat was designed strictly with them in mind. So we have lots of different areas for them to climb around in. Just as well, we have their 2 separate food bowls. There's a heater over here, and even a giant humidifier and heater over here. So it has to be kept quite hot. And we even have these temperature sticks to make sure it stays quite hot. So that will actually let myself or the management team, they'll send us a message on our phones, and that will let us know that there's the temperature is either too low or too high in the habitat, and someone needs to come out and make sure everything's proper. And that's why I live way out in Barrhaven. I'm the last one on the list to come out here. Everyone else is about 15 minutes away. I'm a nice 40-minute drive, so luckily enough, I'm number 5 on that list. Yes, they are hungry. They definitely enjoy their sweet potato.
Awesome.
Yeah, so this is, yeah.
I was gonna say, James, I hate to cut this off, but we're coming up to the end of our time slot. Is there any last facts or any words of wisdom about caring for animals around you or anything like that you'd like to tell the students?
Yeah, the main one is if you are interested in a type of exotic pet, look up every bit of information you can before you purchase them. Awesome. I would love to take on every one of the animals that you did enjoy for the time, but we just don't have the space. So I would love it if you were going to look into a green iguana that gets to 6 feet, look into that beforehand. Look into its behavior throughout the year. There's so many different things you need to think of before you purchase a type of exotic animal as a pet. That would be my number one thing to take away.
That's great advice. And just a pet in general, even, a dog or a cat, like they're all responsibility. So do your research, right? That's great advice. Well, thank you so much, James, for taking the time to be with us today. And I'm sure you can see the comments. Everyone had such a fun time. So thank you all for being so engaged as well. This was really great. We really appreciate you choosing to spend your time with us. I'm going to post a little thank you in the note. But yeah, so thanks again. This was Let's Get Social Week, Little Ray's Reptiles virtual field trip. If you're interested in joining another virtual field trip, please check out the link I just posted in the chat. There's tons of stuff going on this week. And we're going to have another wild virtual field trip with Little Ray's Reptile because it's just so fun. And I've done 2 of them now and we see different animals every time. It's so cool. So thank you again, James. And thank you to all our students.
Thanks, you guys. I had a good time. Great questions. And stay safe. Enjoy the school year.
Awesome. All right. Bye, everyone.
Guys.